Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And tonight we're here to talk about Rick and Morty or whatever. Dragon, what if we did the whole podcast like this?
Probably get old.
I know, all right. Okay, so, oh boy, Dragon, Rick and Morty, Night Family. Dragon, I gotta tell you, man, season 6, this has been one hell of a comeback season so far. I have no idea what you think of last week's episode. I'm actually kind of curious to pick your brain on it just a little bit. I personally really liked it. Like, it was fucked up and twisted, but let's just say in light of, like, the baby incest thing that we got in the in season 5, I think that was, like, a much better use of the incest concept. But this Dragon, I thought this was great. Like, this might be my favorite of the season thus far. Of course, like I feel like I probably appreciate this even more than you do because this is just straight up like a Jordan Peele homage through and through, and I loved it. And I thought it was just flawlessly executed. Honestly, if I had to go and rank all of the Rick and Morty episodes, this might be in my top 10. So I'm like, I especially liked it after a rewatch. Because I will admit, the first time I watched it, I thought that last action sequence, I was like, okay, it's a little bit like fighty fight, you know, like. But then on a rewatch, I was like, oh man, this is like really creative. The way that we're switching back and forth between the dream and, you know, and being awake and the dream person and just all the switching, like it's very kinetic. So yeah, Dragon, I'm all aglow about this episode. So. What do you think about this episode? And then, like I said, I'm very curious to kind of just get your sort of like elevator pitch, like you know, like basically your critic quote on the movie poster opinion of last week's episode.
Right, so I'm sorry, do you want me to start with last week or you want me to talk about this week?
Start with last week really quick. I'm just curious.
Well, I'm not sure quite how to kind of summarize it in a poster quote, but I don't know, let's say it was okay, it's Loki taken to the next level.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's kind of like the best way I could summarize, the Bethic twins think of it all. It was an ambitious episode. It was very interesting.
You enjoyed it?
I mean, it was weird, but I like I thought it was a very clever kind of writing thing of like, okay, well, this is a very unusual yet kind of sanctioned relationship because it's herself. I thought it was a great exploration of narcissism.
Cool. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right, and on to this week's episode.
Yeah. So apparently this was like a shelved concept from like I don't know if it was the first or second season, but like they've had this for a long time. This idea, and
this feels like a season 1 or 2 episode. It really does.
Yeah, it's a very has a very self-contained vibe about it, which I really did appreciate. It's very because of that. You know, it's very like okay, there's just kind of a tribute to old form of Rick and Morty. You know, where we're just very much like. You know, it very much feels like kind of like an adventure was kind of taken. You know, we're kind of ripping the knob off at 11 with. You know, of like okay, let's just take this to like let's just escalate this to kind of a really kind of impressive degree. And
that is that right there is like my absolute favorite formula for Rick and Morty. Like I certainly think there's some character development, like you know, canon stuff happening in the background of this episode that we'll get to. But yeah, all in all, this is like I'm one of those people where I don't care as much about the canon and the ongoing storyline as much as I care about just having, you know, week to week really killer high concept, you know, sci-fi episodes like this.
Yeah. I mean, I really love the climax on this episode. I thought that was rather good. I mean, I guess just starting to break down the episode. I mean, I really liked about it. I think you know so we have this device that essentially rewrites your subconscious mind to take over and do stuff for you while you're asleep. Essentially, doing the hard part, and learning the new hobbies and doing the chores you don't want to do. It's kind of what I really liked about it is that it kind of reminds me of like the whole symbiote Spider-Man thing, where the idea is that the black suit would take Peter Parker's body on a joyride while he was asleep. So it's kind of like a more kind of targeted version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of a heady idea. Like, man, that's kind of interesting. But of course, it's a very creepy visual, like basically a living zombie version of yourself at night.
There was one shot in particular I'm gonna get to, but it just very much called to mind my state of physical and mental exhaustion at 2 a.m. and Halloween Horror Nights last week. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I think you can guess which shot I'm talking about. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, so let's break it down. Starting with that T.S. Eliot quote, which, I mean, like I said, Dragon, this episode through and through is a Jordan Peele homage. Like this is one of the most straightforward kind of like. I like that it's its own thing, right? Like it's not. I feel like it's the closest to us as far as the concept goes. Like the concept of like a mere version of a family, but it's still kind of like an original take on it. And Jordan Peele, all three of his movies kind of start with this like weird quote, kind of like cryptic quote, setting up the themes of the movie in a pretty blatant way. So I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it was. I think it starts off as a T.S. Eliot quote. I don't know if they kind of altered it at the end or not.
The end does get pretty ridiculous, so I don't know. It's probably like not a. I'm guessing it's not a word for word T.S. Eliot quote, but I don't know. I should have looked it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if T.S. Eliot was really out there for like, let me go a little broad with it towards the end. Let's see how history reflects on
Okay,
this.
well, you have to remember T.S. Eliot is the guy who wrote the poems that inspired Cats, so
yeah, so I mean, it's possible.
it is possible.
I feel
like the guy does kind of have a Lois Carroll quality to him because of that.
And T.S. Eliot, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. Let's just see what happens.
Right.
Let's just see how history reflects on this. So yeah, let's see. So of course, what are the things that are the Sanchez family or the Smith family? I guess technically the Smith family are doing. While they kind of have some kind of hobby time.
Okay, well, first of all, I think the one criticism I do have with this episode is I think the ab thing gets pretty old.
They're obsessed with abs and musculature on Rick and Morty because we have the whole the gutter the whole gutter thing with with Rick and Morty, like people's being really in shape, and then of course now it's like abs and we're doing it again. But the abs podcast was really funny though.
The podcast was funny, sure, especially because that ad read is like, Dragon, it's almost word for word the Me Undies thing. Like, I was literally listening to a podcast after I watched this episode last night, and the word buttery smooth came up. I was like, oh my god.
Me Undies!
Jesus.
You know who we have to hear do a Me Undies ad? We gotta hear Vinnie Jones do a Me Undies ad.
Oh that's my god. Vinnie Jones should just do all the Me Undies ads.
Yes.
Just every time someone needs to do a Me Undies ad, just like plug in the Vinnie Jones vocals. and then it's kind of like, he can kind of do like a cameo sort of thing where, like he plugs in the name of the podcast too, so you get the brand recognition.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So we have ab workouts, playing the trumpet, and
foreign languages.
Yep. Spanish particularly, yeah. And then Jerry with the dumb one that oddly pays off.
It does.
Yeah, because I was
saying, which Jerry Watch 2022.
God. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, I think the use of of Sleep Jerry. Sleep Jerry was an MVP for sure.
Yeah.
Real Jerry, pretty pathetic, honestly.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's so weird to say. I mean, I like Sleep Jerry more than I like.
But that's kind of like a running theme this season, right? Because in the opening episode, we easily got the best incarnation of Jerry we ever had.
Oh yeah, no.
So I kind of like that we are exploring like sort of, and then last episode even we had like the return to the Jerry daycare, and then we have the confirmation that the Jerry we're following is the swapped version from the Jerry daycare. So that is one thing that I like about, like, they are staying consistent with Jerry as a pathetic character, but I like that they are playing around with kind of like the interdimensional quality with the show in regards to him.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing, because when you think about that, you're watching the episode before we get the payoff of of Night Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
We have just this ridiculous, like, Jerry, of all the things you could do, I mean, really? You're gonna. Okay, it's less
Honestly,
the fact that.
the only reason I like it is that it kind of reminds me of the whole Mr. Meeseeks thing of like, I want to shoot a perfect game. Or
No,
no, it's not even a perfect game. It's I want to take 3 strokes off my golf game.
Yeah.
Like, so it kind of calls to mind that, and I like that it is kind of like an exploration of his loneliness, that he's so desperate for connection. I'm sorry. Oh God.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing here's the thing that bugs me about it is the fact that it's not so much that Jerry is doing a pen pal, and that's fine. I mean, it's a little weird, but that's fine. What bothers me is like literally pen pal with yourself, who has all the same thoughts and opinions. You literally have a whole daycare full of Jerrys, and yet you're gonna be pen
But
pals
we already established, we literally established right at the end of last episode that it's not like he can just waltz right into that daycare full of Jerry's anytime he wants.
Well, true, but that's why he could write them. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so let's see. Oh, it's a little fun gag. I think one of my favorite kind of like technology gags we had here. I love the rooster alarm clock that basically is like a life cycle thing. I love the fact that like an egg shoots out, and rooster grows and then it dies and it turns into dust.
Is it the fact that it rapidly ages, or I kind of like read it 2 ways. The first time I read it as the rapid aging thing, but then I was like, wait a minute, does the laser just shoot the chicken dead?
No, it's rapidly aging.
It's rapidly okay.
Yeah, that's because again, it goes from an egg to the rooster, and then it
right.
grows really old, and then it dies.
That's more creative. All right.
I mean,
sorry.
I'll admit I didn't double check because I thought it was rather clear. Maybe you're right, but I have to rewatch that.
Because I was gonna say, like, just like if it is what I'm thinking it was on the rewatch, it makes it like a little bit more dark because it's not even like the rooster's going for a full lifespan, as short as that lifespan is. It's just getting instantly murdered. But I think you're right, though. I think you're right.
All right. Okay, let's see. So here's the great comedy of the episodes. The fact that, so albeit a very odd way, you have kind of like, okay, essentially you have yourself as your own butler, or as your own kind of hobbyist, and it's like, okay, what could go wrong here? So because Jerry's been talking to Night Jerry, he learns that, hey, Night Summer wants you to rinse the dishes before you nod off, before you go to bed. And that sets a line. Rick just will not have them dictating any terms, so on principle he refuses to do the dishes, essentially. Which sets the whole conflict into motion. So just the fact that it's like this call to. By the way, I had no idea about this until a little after the episode thing they played, the inside the episode thing. It's kind of funny, Night Summer, quite sinister and quite the force to be reckoned with, and we have this great callback apparently to like probably season 1, maybe season 1 or 2, where we have Rick saying to her constantly, "Your opinion means very little to me."
Right, and okay, so here's I certainly think that out of all the stuff in the episode, as far as like the ongoing continuity and character development, I certainly think the Night Summer stuff is the strongest thing that we have to look out for. Don't you agree?
I think so. I think it's more of a sea of like Summer has a lot more to her than we probably thought.
And I think they've been building that for a while, and I think they're slowly, I don't know, ultimately I do think that maybe what they're building towards is ultimately like a rivalry between Summer and Rick, possibly.
It would track. Especially if she's kind of taken after her mother a little bit, so it's possible.
If she's taken after her mother, and if she's like really coming into her own with the sci-fi side of the show.
I mean, think about this: her being her mother and her father's child, again being a pache of kind of a pache of those two, you'd imagine like there's the independent streak that Beth's kind of like reckoning with
Mhm.
now, and then you have just kind of the kind of a resentment for Rick that kind of Jerry, because kind of a rivalry aspect you'd have from Jerry, so it kind of makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So it kind of it's kind of ingrained in her potentially. So let's see. Okay, so here we go. So we have just so as a he pours a bunch of crust and crud and like ketchup on the plates, refusing to wash them, which leads to all the dishes being broken. Which then you think, okay, that will resolve the matter there. So this is awesome. What does Rick do?
Okay, so I
Despite
love that this is like a great example of how we have to do the storytelling now that we don't have the portal gun, right?
uh-huh.
Because we have to like go through this whole arduous basically like quest just to get some dishware.
Yep, it goes like into the deep
My
recesses of
favorite detail is
space.
the whole like you owe me.
I love that. That's great.
It's
He
like
goes
what is the story there?
So essentially, he goes to a place. So essentially, this is a nod to Avengers: Infinity War with Eitri, the dwarf, who made Thor's hammer and makes
Oh,
Stormbreaker. So essentially, get that, or just in general, like kind of a blacksmith kind of forge of sorts. But regardless, so he goes all the way there, and essentially he makes indestructible dishes. Not just indestructible dishes, 110%
God.
indestructible dishes. I'm saying even Wolverine could break this China.
But I will say, Dragon, I do think it is like I think he got a little big for his britches as far as like wouldn't you think that the next logical step wouldn't be to try and break the stuff, but to just outright like take the stuff?
I mean, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Like I do think that was an oversight on his part.
It was an oversight for him, like thinking the matter was resolved there, but yeah, just
All right.
So he wakes up, and essentially, then we have the horrific, terrifying sequence of the episode.
This is legitimately like Dragon, this is as far as I'm concerned, because Jordan Peele is like much more of a stylistic and thematic director with horror undertones than he is like a straight like I feel like his style is very much like obviously his movies are kind of like rooted in horror, but I really do feel like I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is as horrific as any scene from any real Jordan Peele movie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
look
mean,
at what we
just
do.
the real world gross out factor of this. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I'm with you. I mean, I was very repulsed.
It's honestly horrific. It honestly kind of makes my skin crawl.
I mean, the thing that really gets me about it is like we have like the side shot where you have like them like closing the mouth with all the icky gunk and that's utterly horrible. And I love the lighting of this whole sequence too. That's what
uh-huh,
the
uh-huh.
lighting's fantastic.
And this is as far as like speaking of Jordan Peele, this like I said is kind of like straight out of Us. You know what I mean? The whole the alternate, the mirror version family kind of taking over and holding the family member captive. Very, very much calling that to mind.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So, of course, Rick's retaliation here is okay. So, apparently, Night Summer is the leader of this little operation. So, we're gonna use Summer as the decoy, not allowing her to fall asleep, so they'll think that she's the leader, and we put her in another. Here's the thing. So, a Night Rick takes away all the technology, which already I love because we see Rick kind of basically doing like kind of Doc Brown from the end of Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2, where he's basically building, he builds Mr. Fusion out of garbage.
Mhm.
So I love that we can have Rick do that here, where he's like building like like all these really impressive things with stuff he found around the house, and he like has like the little force field shield he has to lick these eggs for, which is. But more importantly, I love that he builds these sleep. I love the sleep deprivation suit. It's unnerving, but it is really cool.
Yes, yes, yes.
Most uncomfortable thing you'll ever wear. Like look at all the detail on that thing too. It's like there's like a mix of I don't know if it's like coffee and Mountain Dew. It's like Mountain
It's
Dew and
Mountain
something.
Dew and Dayquil, Dragon.
Oh right, Dayquil. That's what I was thinking
If
of.
it was
Yes.
coffee and Mountain Dew, I feel like that's at least two things that are actual beverages.
Yeah, I know you're right. The Dayquil. That's why
The
it was orange. I was
Dayquil is what
wondering.
brings it over the edge, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Was brilliant, and they had the whole effect. She's wearing, it looks like dryer lint or something. She's wearing like this stuff, and then she's wearing a whole bunch of sweaters, and
Mhm.
there's like forks and knives, like forks like around her, like so she can't sit down, and she has like the Alexander, DeLarge, like the Clockwork Orange, like
Yeah,
eye
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Of course, they're asking, "Wait a minute, what are you wearing?" I just picked something new to wear.
It's not like you guys are fashion experts.
Exactly. That's
That's
fair.
fair.
Good. All right. So I tell you my favorite bit of like the con here. So summer. Next day, I think okay, the charges have been set.
Oh, this
We're
is
home
great.
free.
This is a total like twist ending for sure. Or not twist ending, but like a good kind of like midway twist for sure.
I love Rick Sanchez's blind spot. His blind spot is this man loves Shoney's. He loves Shoney's with everything he has. So it's the fact that like, hey, let's get pancakes at Shoney's. Yeah. And of course, it's the whole like, yeah, I don't,
Dragon, I'm
Canadians
still
very
waiting
little.
for his fear of pirates to become a major plot point.
That
I'm
would be
still waiting for it, Dragon.
again if we need something to take down the Rickus Rick
That's
man,
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Rick
I
confronting
just
his
think that's
fear.
like the most fucking random phobia.
Yeah, just like Rick showing up in a giant like in a flying pirate ship like Captain Hook. It's
Like
like more.
I just want to see like Rick take on Pirates of the Caribbean and have it just be like I don't know. Like, do you think his fear of pirates stems from like a traumatic childhood memory of
Well,
Pirates of the
remember
Caribbean?
something. In Anatomy Park, he had Pirates of the Pancreas.
That's what I'm
So
saying. Yeah, yeah.
that is interesting, though. He would make that ride despite having such a crippling fear.
Well, like I said, my theory of that ride has always been that he's trying to conquer his fear.
Hmm.
But anyways, and that's why he's so proud of it. All right.
Of course,
Anyways.
that would be the rationale for why he has this pirate stuff. Like it was from Pirates of the Pancreas. It was from the design concepts. It's from the blueprints.
Oh God. All right. All right.
Anyways, of course, Summer she is kind of Trojan horsing things there, and basically has these kind of tranquilizer drones. And here's the thing: this is an idea in the writing I feel kind of went over my head, and I think on the rewatch I get the logic, but still I think it's kind of maybe a little too subtle for its own good. So the idea these drones show up and they're armed with tranquilizers, and I believe the idea is like you're going to be our slaves now. So if you rebel, we'll just trank you, and then you lose your free will, and you become your night self.
Uh-huh.
And basically, well, you'll probably never see the light of day again if you don't play ball. I think that's the threat, which makes sense. It's just initially things like okay, those drones show up, and
I didn't
well,
necessarily get the vibe that they were gonna stay their night selves like forever if they got tranked. Just that the tranking was kind of like just
well,
a
no. I don't mean like one trank and they're dead forever. What I
uh-huh.
mean is just the fact that like, hey, eventually, if you don't play ball, it's going to keep tranking you, and you won't be free anymore. You won't have
Yeah,
your
yeah,
own
yeah.
free will.
Right, right.
So yeah, so I don't know, kind of like reads you think they show up and they trank him, and then okay, well, this is going to be the night selves from that point forward. But then you realize if that happens, then we have nowhere to go story wise, and we kind of have Rick on his heels big time in this episode because we took everything away from him. He's very much he's in a rock and a hard place.
Hmm.
Yeah, but he's like Nacho Varga, man. He's no way out. So let's see. So anyway, so Night Jerry he saves the day, and Night Jerry actually serving a purpose and being pretty cool.
Indeed.
Which then leads to our climax, which I thought I love the climax of this episode is utterly fantastic. It's this amazing chase sequence, man, where I just love the idea we keep the threat of our characters getting knocked out, if like dozing off or falling asleep, and if that happens, they will become their night selves and be sabotaging mid car chase. That's a
No,
great idea.
it's awesome. It really is. It's
Admittedly, how
the fact
stupid
that
is
we have like
Morty?
the two distinct versions of the character and having the same body and just kind of
Mhm.
like all the different switch ups.
Now you have to admit how stupid is Morty for like rolling down the window and looking behind him during that chase. I mean, really, but no, with the exception of that, then everything else that was like it's fantastic. I love all the little things like Beth kind of knocks herself out in the wheel for a second, then oh god, now she's driving the thing, and you have like Morty having to wake her up with the cigarette lighter.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's see. So Of course. Okay, let's see. I'll tell you what was really hilarious. The fact that we have this bit where we have this dumb. We kind of make fun of the cliche in a really fun way, where it's like jump, jump from car to car. But I'm in a fully functioning car. Why would I do that? Family. Oh,
Aww.
just jumps from the car, and then here's what makes it even better. We have this ridiculous domino set up to do the conventional action explosions. We have a gasoline factory. We we have a gasoline factory. We have like a dynamite factory, and then we have like the dry leaves plant. Just and somehow the dry leaves plant has like the biggest explosion of the bunch. Just really just really funny. And then ultimately we have just kind of like, and it gets even crazier. Like, okay, we think we're out of the woods, and then oh no, Summer is just the worst of the bunch, has leaned on a trank dart, so now she's in charge, and leads to this insane, thing where they're fighting and knocked out, not knocked out, waking up. It's this whole crazy thing, and they've kind of reached kind of like a kind of an armistice of sorts. Of like, hey, let's
You know
kind
what
of
it
stay
kind
up.
of reminds me of as far as like just kinetic energy and fight scenes and animation goes?
What does it remind you of?
The golden era of the Y2K chicken fights.
Right, from Family Guy.
Yeah, like I'm saying the good ones, like the really well paced ones,
Well, yeah,
just
the
not like
original.
really over the top.
Well, you mean the original three then, right?
Yeah, sure. Let's say the first three.
Yeah, like say the third one is when he goes to dinner with the chicken's wife. That's the third.
Right. Oh my god. Yeah.
Which still is the fun. I think.
No, it's
I
like
think.
it's just such a great like little break in the action.
I
Oh,
still.
anyways.
I just love the fact that he's like aggressively paying the check when he turns.
No, Dragon, I gotta tell you, I have legitimately seen like fights break out over the damn who will pay the check. Like it's stupid, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those selfish bastards where it's like if someone's offering to pay the check, I'll be like, oh, well, okay, thank you.
Well, I don't view it as selfish. I view it as like, okay, well, if you're gonna offer, well, there you go, use your self.
Right,
Take
yeah.
advantage of that.
It's like I'm not gonna like put up an argument about it.
I think honestly, this is going to sound really like a weird way of conversation develop right now. I'm just going to go for it right now. It's effectively, if you're really dead set on paying that check, then you got to outsmart the other guy. Okay, you're gonna walk off. You're gonna pay without telling him.
All right. Anyways, yeah, you're right. Better refocus. This isn't a recap of like a 10-year plus old Family Guy episode.
So, regardless, our climax is, you're right though, it's very kinetic. It's kind of great how we're kind of shifting everything. We kind of reach a stalemate, kind of a standoff. So I'm like, well, what this thing's going to keep going on forever. So what do? So we basically offer a truce. Very simple. We'll let you guys be in control and everything. Go back to the way things were. Just all we have to do is Rick has to rinse the dishes. You'll notice he doesn't even have to clean the dishes, just has to rinse them and they'll take care of the rest.
It takes 2 seconds.
Literally, you walk over, you put some hot water on it, and just leave it in there. So of course, I love this cut though. I love how you kind of realize you're thinking, okay, what's Rick? So Rick gonna say yes? And like, nope, Rick's he's Night Rick, so he didn't say yes, and then we're seeing the Night people in charge. That's what I'm saying. This was the thread of the episode. Like, okay, they're gonna remain in control, and then it's this hysterical thing of like, oh, the episode ends, but then kind of the end credits gag for this is kind of the first time I think we've done this. The end credits gag essentially is the ending of the episode because the end of the
basically
episode
resets the status quo. Yeah.
Because I was wondering, I wondered if
You're like, okay, is this going to be like a Clone Saga type of thing? Is this going to be like an ongoing story arc? Is is Night Summer going to become like another big bad?
Well, I mean, for me, honestly, what I was thinking more so is, okay, they can't possibly start the next episode off like this. So is this going to be us drawing a line in the sand? Like, yeah, we're just going to start off and maybe just going to throw a line out. Maybe not even that. It'll just be, okay, that happened. Then we're just not going to worry about it. But no, we're going to cover it. The logical progression is, well, they got bored and they just kind of like did things for them, did hobbies for themselves, which are costly, and just left them in debt and wake.
Oh, and Dragon, I'm glad I remembered this. I'd be remiss to mention to not mention the shot I was talking about like it just exemplifies my state of mind in Orlando at 2 a.m. on Halloween Horror Nights. The shot of Rick and Morty just doing the sit-ups and they're like just totally just like they're caked in sweat and exhausted and heaving. I'm like, yep, That's 2 a.m. in Orlando. All right.
Yep, and that's they get bored and they kind of relinquish control, and that's all she wrote.
Okay, so yeah, I think that is about it. Yeah, like I said, Dragon, I truly think this is like this season has been a great return to form. I really don't think we've hit there's been a bad one yet. I think all 4 episodes that we've gotten have been really high concept, filled with great moments. And honestly, Dragon, I really feel like we're hitting a solid middle ground here where I do think we are getting continuity in the form of character development. Um, but I also like the middle ground we're hitting of like we can do these like I really do think this formula of having these like one-off episodes where you have the reset to status quo maybe happening as a post-credits gag, that's a good way to do it. And I really hope we continue in that trend because I'm really loving this more episodic take while still having high stakes as far as the grander continuity goes. I think the show's really finally starting to strike a good balance in that regard.
Yeah. Again, it's kind of we're kind of hitting the kind of like the greatest hits in a sense. We've kind of gone back. We have our great kind of continuity driven ones and a few kind of offshoots. Like here's some heady ideas, and this is just kind of like a cool kind of like a node to Jordan Peele, one could say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Okay, well, that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back next week for the next one.
They killed the Choco Taco!
All right, have a good one, folks.